Hey everybody, I'm Lev. I'm a solutions engineer at Dagger. Today I'm going to show you all harness pipelines with Dagger. So today we're going to look at harness, and I want to show you something really truly scary, which is this project called Snippetbox. And the reason why it's scary is because I'm on a mission to include every known CI provider into this one project. So right now I have GitLab, Azure Pipelines, CircleCI, GitHub Actions, and as of right now, Jenkins, of course. Who can forget? And also, this is like Source Hut CI. And now,
Bold
by
choice
popular,
of file name.
yeah, exactly. This is very yeah. Obviously, it's a .build.yaml in the root of your repo. But by popular demand, we now have Harness. Now, for those of you that don't know, Harness CI is actually Drone CI. So they bought Drone about 4 years ago now, and they've continued to invest in it and build on it. And like they're like the Drone GitHub repo is very, very active. So the actual I think these days I think it's really rare to have folks running Drone that's not Harness Drone, but it's possible that exists. But ultimately, like the Harness CI product is Drone. So all that is to say, everything we're going to see today works for both Harness CI and Drone CI. It's the same exact thing. And I think it's really designed for like very large organizations, very complex requirements. So it's not like, in my opinion, the most like easy thing to set up and run. So I did run into a little bit of trouble getting started, but that's actually why I like this project a lot, is because my goal is to basically have like the same exact pipeline represented in every single CI, so that at least I know like the general shape of how things should look, and hopefully that serves as inspiration for other folks too. So this is open source. It's on GitHub, /Snippetbox. So feel free to poke around in there anytime. And you'll see eventually that every single CI provider known to us will be here eventually. So the way that the harness has this concept of pipelines and also input sets. And input sets are this configuration that's required, and it like basically defines like the inputs into a specific pipeline. The easiest way to get started with harness, in my opinion, is you just use their wizard. So if you go into harness and go to pipelines and go to get started and click on run harness pipelines in the cloud, get started. It'll like, because I have GitHub OAuth, it'll like aggressively just add random files to my repo, and it'll all just work. So that's what I recommend doing as a starting point. And that's what I did here in my project as well. So this is all basically auto-generated. And then I have two pipelines that I want to show you. The first one is Snippetbox single. So this is basically the two kind of patterns that exist right now for running Dagger. Is either Dagger is a single call that you make as a part of your CI pipeline, and then Dagger takes over all the execution of lint, build, test, publish, or each one of those steps is its own Dagger function. So Snippetbox has a really nice Dagger pipeline built into it. So if you run Dagger functions, you'll see all the lovely things that it can do, which includes those things that we just discussed. So build, debug, lint. There's an old CI, I'm not sure what that is. Publish. You can actually run the Snippetbox service as a whole. So the idea here is that this pipeline can do both this, run the whole pipeline or run individual steps. And the whole pipeline is simply a Go function or Dagger function inside of the .dagger folder that programmatically calls lint, test, and publish. So it's the same idea through code or not. So anyways, going back to harness. So in my Snippetbox single example, there's some boilerplate that exists for setting up a harness project. And then I have a couple of, I have Dagger Cloud hooked up. So there's an environment variable that I've set using the harness secrets. I've also set CI to true, which is something I have to do to get our Dagger Cloud to work properly. And then basically this should be very familiar with folks that are using Dagger in CI, because normally you install the Dagger engine, and then you run your Dagger pipeline. So here, that's what I'm doing. I'm installing Dagger engine. I'm calling Dagger call CI. So in this case, it is a single command, and it runs my entire pipeline. Afterwards, I stop the engine This is necessary to sync the cache if you're using that part of Dagger Cloud. And then recently I actually saw somebody doing this. They're basically storing all of their engine logs as artifacts, which is brilliant. I was really inspired by this. And I'm like, it's a really good idea. So we should do it too. Unfortunately, and ideally, you like zip this up and ship it off, and store it as an artifact. Unfortunately, for me, Harness doesn't necessarily support storing arbitrary files as artifacts, unlike some other CI providers. So you have to hook up like S3 or something like that, which makes a lot of sense, like for them, right? Because they don't want to just store random files indefinitely and run up that bill. But it just complicates things a little bit. So for the purpose of this demo, I just printed the logs to standard out because it's still helpful if I ever need to inspect and understand anything that was going on. But I really like this as a standard step of a pipeline, is like save the Dagger engine logs, because there's a lot of useful things in there. When in the case where things might go wrong, very often you'll come to our Discord, you'll ask a question, and the very first thing that somebody will say is, where's your Dagger trace and where are your engine logs? So this solves both of those problems. So going back into Harness, the way this looks is I have this pipeline called build Snippetbox in one shot. And what this does is we can just look at a recent run. The way this looks in Harness is Harness has this kind of fancy like visualization tool. And in my case, I have a very simple pipeline that's pipeline in Harness's terms of just build. Like all it does is build. There's no I'm not using any of their like Artifactory plugins or any of the other like fancy like release gates or anything like that. Like you could definitely do all that stuff in this demo. It's very simple. It's just doing the CI portion. And then that individual CI portion gets broken up automatically based on my Harness config file into these specific like steps that are visualized. And I'm assuming that in case things are getting like fanned out or fanned in or whatever, that will probably be reflected in here. But you'll see that all of these steps correspond to all the things that we just saw in my YAML file. So you'll see that I install Dagger, I run the pipeline, it pulls down the engine, it starts running stuff. This is using the plain output. I think it's the default behavior in Harness. And then ultimately it finishes the build and returns my standard out. And because I have Dagger Cloud hooked up, when I go in, if I click onto this link to Dagger Cloud from the Harness output, it'll take me to, oops, I'm trying to be a little bit sneaky here, but it'll take me to, very soon we'll actually have this shipped to Dagger Cloud itself. But like if it detects that you're running in Harness, we do have this like nice little Harness logo now, and it'll show you like, oh, here's your Harness pipeline. So when you click onto it, this is my CI pipeline. It'll show me all of this stuff. This is standard kind of Dagger Cloud visualization, but this is using that kind of single job to rule them all pattern. The other thing is that I wanted to share was, of course, the engine log. So here you can just kind of see the engine logs. You can download this file too, if needed. I think you can see it like a plain text version of it. It's kind of more easy to look at here. So there's some nice stuff within Harness itself that help you understand and debug stuff. Now, the best part about all of this is everything just kind of works. I don't need to do anything special with any Docker config or any special like runner types. Like out of the box, things just work, which I think is really, really nice. So if you are using Harness, you can just install Dagger and be off to the races. I'm gonna show one more thing, but before I do that, I was wondering if anybody on my in the call had any thoughts or questions about what we've seen so far.
So I've been trying to find proof that I came up with that Docker logs thing.
Oh yeah,
when I find that.
I will happily give you credit for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
It is brilliant. Okay.
Wait, I will say I copied it. I copied it in my GitHub Actions config generator also. So
oh, nice.
You're everywhere, Kyle.
Amazing.
And also, it made me think maybe we should generate more than GitHub Actions configs. Maybe we should take this module to the next level.
Yeah, I'm ready for it for sure. Especially because it is pretty tricky to get started with Harness. Like it's not, especially if you try to like upload some files. Like there's just a lot. Like there's a lot of bits that need to fit together properly for you to actually get everything to work. And I definitely found it to be slightly more complicated than other providers, but I think there's a reason for it. I don't think it's just because. I think that the intended audience for this has special requirements. You know what I mean? That just kind of necessitates some of these complications.
I think
But
Harness was a pioneer too. Not Harness. I mean Drone,
Yeah.
now named Harness CI. They were the very first CI system built for Docker.
Yep.
Like super early. Yeah. The guy saw Docker. He's like, I'm gonna run this continuously. And
Nice.
you know, so I guess you can also probably there's some baggage from being so early, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show was just the other version of this. So this is my Snippetbox pipeline that's not calling the CI command. It's just calling individual Dagger functions. So nothing groundbreaking here, but I just wanted to show the two patterns because this is a very common question that we get, which is like, where do I start? If I have a very complicated pipeline, the point of this pattern is to show you that you don't have to migrate every single thing over to Dagger right away. You could choose one of the steps. So imagine I chose just the lint step and I've Daggerized that. Everything else might be doing the same thing that's always been doing. And then slowly you can kind of take over the entire pipeline, or stop when you're satisfied with the results. So this is just showing how each individual step could just be a Dagger function as well. So here I have lint, I have test, I have publish, and then the same thing, stop engine, print, and can capture the logs. And then back in Harness, the way this looks is very similar, right? It's just there's just more boxes now in this UI that correspond to the lint, test, and publish steps. And then on Dagger Cloud side, the way this looks is inside of a specific commit, you'll see the different steps for those things. Like those become individual traces now. So like this is one trace that does everything, and these are the individual traces that do that one specific job. And of course, there's a link to all those directly from the Harness output on the corresponding steps. So yeah, this is all functional and working. The Snippetbox repo is public, so feel free to use that for inspiration. Very soon we will have like a Harness detection baked into Dagger Cloud, so it'll just work out of the box. And I'm also going to work on writing up a nice just doc in our in Dagger docs for the Harness integration, just so we have a record and it's easily findable by people.